Hi everybody, it's me Willow and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for clicking on my video. We're here with another fun movie review for all of you guys to enjoy. I'm also joined by my kitty Albert. You can see him here in the bottom of the screen. We will see how long he lasts. I always say that, but I'm so excited to dive into my new film review. I just went and saw Project Hail Mary and had such a fun time with it. I'm so disappointed. I was supposed to see it over a week ago and things just didn't work out. I couldn't get out of like a work shift. And I'm so mad that I had to wait till now to see it, but I'm happy I finally got it in because I'm a huge Ryan Gosling fan and I also am a big Sandra Hüller fan as well. I really do love her in Anatomy of a Fall, and she's also fantastic in I think it's called Sybil. I believe that's another movie she's in, and she's so good in it. So I am excited to add more Sandra Hüller like discography to my watch list and love her in this. I feel like her German kind of, like the stiffness, like that kind of um blank sense of humor, you know what I mean? Like it's so perfect with the tone in this film. I just love her and Ryan's comedic chops together. They really play off one another quite well in this film. And that's one of my biggest like things that I enjoyed about the film was so funny. Like I was laughing the whole time. I felt like my crowd was not laughing nearly as enough. I was lucky that the people next to me were enjoying it quite a bit, so they were laughing too. But I had so much fun. I got to see this in IMAX. I went and saw it in London, Ontario, the 519, in honor of Mr. Ryan Gosling himself, who is from there. I am also from there. I was born there and I was raised there for a couple years and then I ended up moving for school and stuff. And yeah, it's just kind of cool to have that connection with Ryan and being there in a packed IMAX theater at 3 p.m. on a Thursday kind of made me feel really good because usually when I go to the IMAX screenings, I'm actually like in there with only a handful of people. This time, no, completely full. So it was really nice to see that. I don't know if it's just because it was London, but I thought about going to Ancaster as well, and it was also full at 3. So it seems like people are excited about this movie and they are really wanting to go see it, and I can understand why. Like I mentioned, very funny, but there's also a lot of serious and dark moments to this film as well. Lots of moments about isolation and trying to bring your inner humanity out during the darkest of times, and also believing in yourself as well. And I really appreciate that message. I felt as if this film was like directly speaking to me. I often feel as if I don't fit in with a lot of people here on earth. I feel very isolated. I'm a big loner. I do things often by myself, very independent person, kind of, brought up and forced to be that way. And, it kind of makes you hard a little bit and you have to like you end up missing out on some of these connections that you could have had. And I feel like I don't know if this is what you guys got from the film, but just being in Grace's position, Ryan Gosling's character, and how he feels I feel like he also feels kind of like this outsider. People don't necessarily take him serious. He has this big theory that people really don't believe in him. He's been ostracized by the academic science community. And then when he's brought in as like a specific mind to kind of investigate this natural disaster that's happening on Earth, he is again like just kind of seems like this aloof kind of nerdy guy, not very serious, not in a suit and tie. He's not given security clearance at the very beginning, kind of like embarrassing. And I feel like he also kind of feels like this outsider loner, and he really connects with like his kids that he teaches at his middle school. And he really only has that connection with his class. And then also, when he's in space and he comes across Rocky and his relationship with Rocky and how he develops it, I think is so beautiful. And to see how you can feel so isolated on Earth, yet so seen and connected up in space, up in the vast void by this extraterrestrial being is just so powerful, and it had me crying like for the first half of the film. Like I got a little teary-eyed, maybe it was kind of like watering up and nothing fell, but then at least 3 times I had good tears going down my face because the last half I felt so connected to Rocky and this friendship and like family bond that him and Grace build. And I think it's really beautiful to see a male lead also be very emotional and vulnerable, and he's not this big macho buff guy. He is super buff physically. He is so good looking. Like step aside Ryan Reynolds. It is Ryan Gosling is the Canadian heartthrob. Like I swear, like he is so my type in this movie. Like we're not gonna get into that too much, but he's just like soft, but then he's also like physically, he obviously works out, and he's smart, he's academic, but he's funny. Like I said, I feel like it's nice to see a male lead kind of have this like sensitive side to him, but also like admit his wrongs and understand where he's gone wrong in his life. Like I thought it was really beautiful when him and Rocky are talking about their mates and how he mentioned that he used to have a mate, but she thought his heads were up in the clouds, and they broke the relationship off and never really dived in more. And it's very obvious that Grace really puts up these like barriers and boundaries. He even kind of like talks about it with Rocky at the beginning, and he is afraid to do that next step forward because he's afraid of like rejection and people not understanding him and being this outsider. And I definitely do that as well. I feel like when I get a little bit too close to people, I end up pushing them away because I'm afraid of not being alone. Like you want to not be alone. You're so like lonely and you feel so isolated, and then when you finally find that person who's willing to connect with you, it's like almost like this reflex to just like not pick up their calls or to kind of ignore them, and you feel like you don't deserve it. So I thought it was really nice to see how vulnerable he was, and then his conversation with Sandra Hüller's character near the end of the film when he's given this unfathomable task of being the only remaining like scientist or any person who could go and complete the Project Hail Mary because of the crazy, accidental explosion that occurs, killing most of the team. And he just like flat out admits that he's scared and he's not brave and he doesn't have the skills to do this, you know, like life changing project. And I thought that was really interesting. I feel like we often don't see male or female protagonists really get vulnerable like that and open up and admit that they are failures and they feel like losers and they can't be these like strong, brave, selfless people. I definitely feel like that sometimes too. Like I feel like that's why I really connected with Ryland Grace, the protagonist, and just how I don't know, maybe I was feeding off of his energy, projecting onto it, but I definitely feel like we are both two, very big like strivers. We are perfectionists. We really want people to understand and notice us and acknowledge us for our skills and our talents, and then we're often pushed aside and we're kind of forced to become our own boats, and I think it's interesting when you need somebody to help you paddle along the way and you find that in the most unpredictable situations. And just seeing how this movie opens up and having Ryland Grace kind of be with this amnesia, not knowing what's going on, and we have to kind of follow the two different timelines of Grace in up in space, not knowing what's going on, and then going back to like the flashbacks of Ryland meeting Sandra Hüller's character, also meeting Lionel from The Bear. Like, oh my goodness, when I saw him, I was like, oh, I love him. Love that he's here. He plays Carl, the security guard. He's kind of like part of the CIA or something like that. And I thought it was fun to see him in something other than The Bear because I really love his character on The Bear, one of my favorite parts of that show. And it was great to see him kind of like a similar role, but also like different, a little bit harder. Honestly, like I kind of am upset that we didn't get more of the supporting cast because we also had Ken Lung in there playing one of the Chinese astronauts. I thought it was interesting that they made him have an accent. I thought that was kind of funny, but always love to see him in stuff. I've loved him since like the Night Shift, and then he was in the new Star Wars movie. Of course, love him on Industry. So it was cool to see him here in Project Hail Mary, but it was upsetting that he had such a small role. And even Sandra Hüller's character, I feel like we didn't get enough of her. Like, I also feel like she was a very complicated person, like put at this top, making all of these major world decisions when she has the Petrovna line and how it's really threatening the inhabitants of Earth and how everything's going to start to slowly freeze over the next 3 years and really become inhabitable and really threatening this like humanity crisis. And I feel like this is very reflective of our times. We're also, kind of fighting we are also fighting climate change and battling foreign relations. And the idea if a Petrovna line came into our Earth today with these microorganisms of the astrophy, like threatening to eat our sun away, is scary to think that we are probably in one of the worst moments in history of really trying to work together as humankind. And a lot of people were comparing this film to The Martian, and I guess it's written by the same writer, Andrew Weir. He did both The Martian and Project Hail Mary. They're both his books, and now this one has been adapted from Phil Lord and Christopher Miller in the director's seat, and then we have Drew Goddard doing the screenplay, and they've done so many amazing films. We have the Spider-Verse franchise, we have the 21-22 Jump Street franchise, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, so many incredible films, the Lego movie, and to see this one as a part of their filmography is very interesting. And comparing it to The Martian, I feel like The Martian, which was done about 10 years ago now, I think it was 2015, I believe. I love that movie. It's one of my favorite films. I think it's such a comfort watch. And I feel like that one is really about working together as a team and getting all the foreign relations, when we're really down in our luck, we turn to our allies and they are there to help us. And I feel like in this film, Project Hail Mary, it's kind of the opposite. We have Sandra Hüller's character saying that in 30 years, it seems like a quarter of our population is going to be, killed due to weather and starvation. And if the nations can't come together and ration, which she says probably won't happen, it's more likely going to be half of the population. So I just think that those like little moments of kind of where society is very interesting and reflective, and how there's literally nobody to step in after the astrophy like blows up the station, killing a lot of the scientists and the astronauts and all the backups who were going to go on this Project Hail Mary trip to try and figure out what's going on with the Petrovna line and try and find the other suns and stars to see if all of them are also being eaten away by the astrophy. I just think it's very interesting, this like really threat to humanity. And then when we go up into space to the other timeline that's kind of like present with Grace and Rocky, and just seeing that humanity that births out of them, and it's just so organic and unknown, but they're able to build a communication link together and work out their differences and support one another through the most trying times. I think the cinematography in this film is really beautiful. Greg Fraser did this film, and I think some of the moments when we're like at Adrian, which is like this planet where the microorganism comes from, I believe. Some of the science I got a little lost on, if I'm being honest, but I love that little Rocky Adrian moment because they name it after Rocky's like mate back home, and because he has like this own alien language, like Grace can't entirely figure it out, so he just says Adrian. And I just thought that was so beautiful, and seeing this like plasma of like green and pink and purple in the air is just so beautiful. And then we kind of go into like the infrared, I believe, and all of these like pink particles all in the air. It's truly beautiful. And I think that was the first moment I cried when Rocky's like, okay, what's going on, Grace? And Grace says, I'm taking a moment. And I was like, I'm taking this moment in too, seeing this on this IMAX screen. Like, I feel like I can never not watch something not on an IMAX screen just because it's so grandiose and it's so beautiful. And even this film, I feel like, doesn't necessarily like lean towards the IMAX as much as some other films I've watched, but I do think it's just so like breathtaking, some of those shots of just seeing Grace so small in the middle and just seeing the world around him so huge. And I also love seeing that reflected in like the spaceship and how they have that one like VR room kind of thing that it's kind of like the volume, and it has all of the 360 images of Earth try and remind the astronauts back of home. And this idea that they're going on this suicide mission to try and save Earth, and Grace is forced against his will to go on this. He has no say, and then he's the one that survives and has to, bring the information back and help Earth and try and save them from this microorganism that's attacking their son is just so interesting. And just the idea that he thinks that he's not brave enough and he doesn't have the strength or the selflessness, doesn't have the bravery. In the end, it's him and he has to do that. And to see the steps that he takes, he goes on the moon walks and the space walks, and he's able to get all the different microorganism samples, and he's able to do some MacGyvering and kind of save some things. And in the end, when him and Rocky have decided to split their astrophy, so Rocky will go home a little bit slower, but instead of being a suicide mission, Grace will be able to return back to Earth and see what he was able to accomplish. Again, I'm bawling. I'm like, oh my goodness, I can't believe this is happening. And also when like Rocky sacrifices himself to save Grace during their orbiting, when they're trying to get out of Adrian, and he like breaks out of his enclosure into the atmosphere that hurts him. Like, I'm crying through all of this. And they part ways and they say, oh, in our planet we don't say goodbye, we just like rub our arm. And it's so beautiful, this organic relationship that has sprout between them. And then we learn that the atrophy and the other like cells have like mashed together and is going to destroy Rocky's ship. So Grace decides to do the brave and selfless thing of send the probe back to Earth with all the information, all his video logs, everything that Earth needs to know on how to save themselves from the Petrova line. And he decides to turn around and go and save Rocky with the last of his astrophy to fuel his journey there. So Rocky is not alone and he'll have somebody with him. And I just thought that was so beautiful and such a connecting moment. And honestly, I wasn't expecting this film to basically just be Ryan the entire film. And then we get to see some of the puppetry with Rocky. And then we get little bits and moments of those flashbacks of our ensemble cast. And it's really the Ryan show. So I know a lot of people have been talking about Oscar prospects. I don't really see it. I feel like this one will probably die down, but I guess we can't necessarily say that because, of course, Sinners, came out around this time last year and it was, so bold and it stuck around to the very end. I didn't feel that same emotion watching Project Hail Mary than I did to Sinners, but I do think this is a really beautiful, breathtaking film with a lot of beautiful humanity and just like relationships that get that development. And I just think Ryan really gets to shine. And I've been a big Ryan fan for years. I was a huge fan of his Ken casting the moment it was announced. I was like, oh my God, he's the perfect Ken. And then everybody doubted him. And then he was perfect. He was nominated. And I was there from day one, loving him, love him in Crazy Stupid Love. He's just such a multi range and has so much talent, and he can, like I said, really go for that comedic chops. He's so hilarious. Crazy Stupid Love, you can see that there. You can also see that in Barbie, but then he can also get really vulnerable and get serious as well. Feel like you can see that in both of those films as well. And he brings all of that and even more to Project Hail Mary, and it really shines as this like solo project for him. So I can understand, maybe there'll be some talks about him in lead actor, definitely in the early predictions. I guess we'll have to wait and see to see the other performances that are coming out this year, but we also have to remember, the Odyssey. I feel like Matt Damon is probably going to have a good chance of being nominated. We also have Disclosure Day, which I think Josh O'Connor's the lead in that. So I feel like he'll probably have a good opportunity of maybe being nominated as well. And also Tom Cruise with Digger. I feel like that's a possible good nomination. So I don't know. Like, are we going to see Ryan Gosling be able to squeeze in there? Like I said, he is a previous nominee for supporting actor and for song. So very interesting to see what is going to happen with the Oscars. Again, I don't really see much prospects outside of Ryan for lead actor, but I was a big fan of it. I do think the cinematography, I really do like the sound in the score as well. I love the Beatles song that they used. I thought that was so fun and just really beautiful. I also love the karaoke scene with the Harry Styles Sign of the Times song. I thought that was a really poignant scene and kind of brought us a little more vulnerability to this strong and brash German Sandra Hüller's character who's in charge of everything. But deep down, she actually is really shaken by having to send these people on a suicide mission. And I feel like she really brings that through in her cover of the Sign of the Times. I think choreography is also really interesting in this film with like the stunts. I feel like this would be a very interesting film to maybe put into the stunt category that's going to be coming out in 2028, 2029 Oscars. It's not this one, it's the 100th Oscars. So one more year, but I find, the space stuff, like, it was really reminding me, of course, of like Gravity and even some of like the Marvel movies that are in the space and Interstellar. I'm also thinking of another film and I'm like blanking on it, but just kind of seeing the coordination that really has to go into like the non-gravity scenes and the spacewalks. I find that really intriguing, and also have to move in like their costumes. I really like the costuming in this film. I thought what they did with Ryan was really intriguing, kind of having him as this like nerdy science cute teacher. Really, really fun. I loved his glasses, just adorable. His little San Francisco cat t-shirt with the Golden Gate Bridge. Thought that was fun. His rain jacket, the bright yellow was awesome as well. Him riding a bike, just those little small characteristics really helps to build this world, and this character helps you love them even more. So I just love looking at all those little crafts. Of course, like I said, cinematography is really beautiful, plays hand in hand in with the lighting. I always look at films. Big pet peeve of mine is when a film is too dark and it's really hard for me to see. I love Sinners, but one of my big pet peeves in that film is that it is kind of dark, and specifically with black actors, you really do have to light them properly. And I feel like in Project Hail Mary, Everybody is lit so beautifully. I feel like it's a lot of like natural light as well, even though we're, kind of in this non-natural space of being either in like a science lab in the middle of nowhere, in the ocean, or being up in space where there's like literally no light, no sound. So I really loved all of the different lighting, lots of different lens flares. I felt like I was back in JJ Abrams' Star Trek, and we even had like a little Star Trek moment too between Rocky and Grace, between like the glass. They did their little Kirk and Spock moment. I was like, we're taking inspirations, definitely a lot of inspirations, of course, from like Star Trek, some Star Wars, Gravity, Alien, of course, ET, 100%, definitely ET. I was very much reminded of Rocky, and he reminds me of ET and the idea of getting home and this friendship between them. So really beautiful that we can add this to like this repertoire of science fiction, alien friendship films. So really do love this, and definitely a strong film. I'll be excited to re-watch it, and I would love to hear your guys' thoughts down below if you guys have had the chance to see Project Hail Mary so far on the opening weekend. Definitely a big add to 2026 for our film releases so far. If you guys are a fan of my review, please make sure you give it a like. And like I said, leave a comment down below. Let's get the conversation going. While you guys are at it, hit the subscribe button and the post notification button so you don't miss out on all of my content going forward. I post lots of film reviews, pop culture stuff, awards predictions, all that jazz. So make sure you hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out. I'm also on all different social media platforms at Willow D Steele. So give me a follow at Letterboxd, Serialized, the Awards Expert app, TikTok, and Instagram. Go give me some love and engage. I'm so grateful for all of your guys' support. Thank you guys so much for helping to grow my channel and push me out into the algorithm so I can meet other like-minded folks like you guys. So thank you guys so much for joining my cinema loving community. Until next time, keep getting lost in film. Bye, guys.